Oh, it's citrus, is it? It's $599, is it? Everyone's talking about the MacBook Neo, and you know, fair enough, it's actually really cool, and review for that coming very soon. But what about this guy, the MacBook Air? This has also had some love with an M5 chip. We've got Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6. They've doubled the base storage to 512, although it is £100 more expensive than last year. But when you factor in the cost of the storage upgrade, actually it's cheaper than before if you were going to do that. 16 gigs of RAM, 512 storage, an M5 chip for $1099. This is probably the laptop that most of us are going to want to buy. To be fair though, this new MacBook Neo at $599, $499 for student teacher discounts, which does, by the way, apply to this as well, that is very tempting. It's almost half the price of a MacBook Air. The downsides, I mean, there's actually quite a few. The main ones are you're stuck with an iPhone chip, the A18 Pro. Also, you have chunkier bezels, a slightly smaller screen. You don't have a backlight for the keyboard. Backlight for the keyboard. The ports are USB 3 and USB 2, and there's no MagSafe. This has two Thunderbolt 4s, so you can output to much higher resolution, high refresh monitors, and two of them, only one on the Neo, and you have MagSafe, so that's not taking up one of the ports for charging. You also get Wi-Fi 7 with this, which is not that important, although you do also need a Wi-Fi 7 router to take advantage of it, router for my American friends, higher quality webcam. More importantly though, you get the Force haptic, I was going to say force sensitive, the proper force feedback touchpad on the Neo. It is actually a traditional design where like the corners go into the chassis a little bit. Still feels good, but not as nice as this. Also, the Air comes with 16 gigs of memory, 512 storage as standard rather than 8 and 256. Also, the storage is much faster. The M5 chip, which we'll come to in a second, is significantly more powerful. So if you're doing any kind of proper video editing, any kind of gaming, rendering, and of course we'll make this a lot more future-proof as well. You can probably use this for the next 10 years, honestly, and it'll be absolutely fine. You also have Touch ID in the power button here. You have to pay an extra £100 on the Neo, so it goes from $599 to $699 to get Touch ID. That also doubles the storage. And an extra 2 hours of battery. Apple say you'll get 16 hours on the Neo, you'll get 18 on the Air. 0.6-inch larger screen because we have the thinner bezels versus the Neo. Also, you've got the larger 15.4-inch option if you do fancy a bigger screen. I think that's it. There's probably something else. There are a lot of reasons to go for an Air over a Neo, whether it's worth paying an extra £500, going from $599 to $1099, subject to discounts and blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure, but certainly this is a much better all-round laptop. Since Apple refreshed the MacBook Air, and in fact the entire Mac lineup with their M series of chips, starting with the M1 back in 2020, they've had a problem, a really big problem. They've been too bloody good, and so anyone who bought an M1 Air, this lovely little copper color, the design was updated with the M2 Air, so the year after this, which got rid of that sort of tapered design, which I actually really quite like. Also, we've got these chunkier bezels, but this is still a fantastic laptop, very, very usable. And I think one of the big questions coming out of the MacBook Neo is, should I spend $599 on that, or should I get an M1 Air that might offer similar performance in some ways? So the problem Apple have had is that their laptops have been so good for so long, there really just hasn't been much reason to upgrade. So here we are again, 2026, new MacBook Air, and the main reason, honestly, to consider upgrading is the fact that you're getting 16 gigs of memory, 512 storage as standard now. Because in every previous MacBook Air review, I've said this is a great laptop, really good value for money if you want, Mac OS, but you're going to have to spend an extra $200, whether it's upgrading the storage or upgrading the RAM. Now, I would not spend another penny on this. Just get the cheapest version. If you need more storage, just buy an external SSD. If you need more memory because you think you're going to use it, then you're probably best off going with a MacBook Pro instead if you really need that higher performance. This base entry-level MacBook Air M5 is exactly the one you should buy, and don't spend any more, except for maybe buying a power adapter because it doesn't come in the box here in the UK and Europe and some other places. What hasn't been upgraded, again, is the screen. Still 60 Hz IPS LCD, 500 nits of brightness. It is a nice screen, especially with True Tone, which you don't have on the MacBook Neo. The color accuracy is really nice. It's the best one of these screens you can get, but for similar money on a Windows rival, you'll get OLED 120 Hz. This screen needs updating next, and it's a little bit frustrating that we've not had any change this year. So how much faster is this new M5? Well, it's not just the chip, because the storage is also faster. They've doubled the read and write speeds of the SSD. I think that's largely because they have just discontinued that lower 256 gig capacity, and it was the case before. If you upgraded from 256 to 512, then you'd get the faster speeds. So that's mainly because they've got rid of the 256. So faster storage, but the M5 chip. Bear in mind though, there are a couple of different versions of this new M5 Air. The base model has an 8-core GPU, but if you pay an extra $200, you not only get double the storage, a terabyte, but also it bumps the GPU up to 10 cores. So naturally that will have an effect on the graphics performance as well. But the big headline upgrade with the M5 is the AI performance, mostly because each GPU core has its own neural accelerator. This is the same case as the M5 that we get in the MacBook Pro, but how will we know unless we put it to the test? This is the Draw Things app. I've got the M4, I've got the M5. We've downloaded a fairly simple Qwen Image 1 local image generation AI model, 6-bit, the exact same prompt, and we're going to see how much quicker the M5 is. Go. And even just 30 seconds in, this is estimating 31 minutes, this is estimating 11 minutes. If this kind of thing is part of your workflow, then that is a heck of an upgrade. But I think realistically, most people who are working with local large language models and developing with AI want for lack of a better word, a ton more memory and a lot more performance. So they'd probably go for a MacBook Pro with the newly updated M5 Pro and M5 Max chips. So this extra performance is obviously nice, future-proof, great, but maybe not that useful to most people buying a MacBook Air. Well, let's put them to the test. M1 versus M4 versus M5, all updated to the latest macOS Tahoe. And in terms of the processor speeds, this is Geekbench 6, it's between 60 and 75% faster on the M4, and upwards of twice as fast in terms of multi-core on the M5. But going from the M4 to the M5, it's a modest 10% bump. However, jumping over to the graphics test, this is where we see some of the biggest gains, and that is impressive. The M5 is still 34% faster than last year's M4. And it's a similar story when we run the metal version of the test. 38% faster this year. But it gets better, although not straight away. This is Geekbench AI, but both the M4 and M5 are significantly faster than the M1. And while the M5's neural engine is a bit faster, it's not groundbreaking. What is groundbreaking is when we use the graphics, the GPU, to run this same AI test. And because we now have those neural accelerators on each GPU core, but look at those M5 numbers compared to last year. 31, 99, 149% faster. If you're running graphically intensive programs that can take advantage of AI acceleration, then the M5 is significantly faster than even last year. Although even without AI, just a raw graphics test, the M5 is still a good 24% faster than last year. To be fair, most of us aren't really buying a MacBook for gaming, but they have got a lot more capable, and we are seeing more games now supported on Mac. And in Cyberpunk at Full HD Plus with medium settings, I'm getting a borderline unplayable 28 FPS on the M1, a solid 47 FPS on the M4, and a very smooth 62 FPS on the M5. Even just from last year, which no one realistically is actually upgrading from, it's still a good deal faster. I also ran a quick Wi-Fi test because we have gone from Wi-Fi 6 to 6E to 7 now with the M5. Also, I had all these at 100% when I started the test, and we're down to 85% on the M1, 94% on the M4, and also 94% on the M5. This is still a very capable laptop, but it is showing its age, and what I think will be really interesting is how the MacBook Neo with its A18 Pro chip compares to these. So we'll have to come back to that in a different video. I think for a lot of us though, it's that question of, is the Air going to be powerful enough going forward? Should I pay quite a bit more and get a Pro for better long-term use? Well, I can tell you with this M5 here, I am currently generating an image, the same one from the previous test. Again, I have my 4K Premiere Pro running here. We've also got a YouTube video playing here, mostly smoothly. I am, I think, finding the upper limit of the Mac. Although if we stop the AI generation, now everything is pretty much flawless. Yeah, absolutely. So there is an upper limit. Obviously, One of the downsides, one of the compromises of the MacBook Air is that it doesn't have a fan, and I can tell you now actually it's actually pretty hot underneath. So you are going to experience throttling depending on how you use it, particularly for sustained performance, like if you're playing games for a long period of time, if you're exporting video. Because it doesn't have a fan to cool the chip down, it's going to have to throttle more quickly versus a MacBook Pro, which of course does have a fan. So yeah, absolutely, you can slow this down if you really throw some local AI generation, 4K video, and a bunch of Chrome tabs at the same time. But realistically, for most of us, this is going to be more than powerful enough. The M5 is an incredibly capable chip, and you really should not spend more on a MacBook Pro. Which brings me to kind of the last bit of the video, really. Who should spend the extra £500 to go from a new MacBook Air M5 to a MacBook Pro M5, the base model? Well, what are you getting? You're getting a terabyte of storage as standard now. Apple quietly updated the base storage when they revealed the M5 Pro and M5 Max versions of the MacBook Pro, so you're getting double the storage. You're getting a much nicer screen with their 120Hz ProMotion, it's mini LED, it's much brighter, up to 1600 nits, and it's more color accurate. You can spend a little bit extra to get the nano texture option, which I have on that MacBook Pro right there, which I love. You're getting an extra Thunderbolt 4 port as well as an HDMI 2.1 and a full-size SD card reader, so much better connectivity. And of course the Pros do have a fan, so as I say, for potentially sustained performance, that will help cool the chip and you'll get slightly better performance. And crucially, you can just spec the Pros ridiculously. You can spend up to $7.5 grand on an M5 Max 16-inch, 128GB memory, 8TB setup. The downside is you're paying a lot more, at least £500 more to go from the Air to the base Pro. It's thicker and it's heavier. That's basically the three downsides. But realistically, the biggest competitor to the MacBook Air is the MacBook Neo, its smaller, cheaper brother. While this is a lot more capable for students, for your kid's first MacBook, for your parents maybe, the MacBook Neo is going to be the one you want to buy because it's, as I say, almost half the price of this. So that is the new M5 MacBook Air. What do you think? Are you tempted to buy one? Are you going to upgrade? Do you think finally we've come far enough since the incredible M1 that it's actually worth buying a new Mac, or should we maybe wait another year? Let me know what you make of this in the comments, and if you've got any questions, drop a comment below. Just as a little thank you for watching to the end of the video, can I show you this 2015 MacBook Air? The first MacBook Air was, I think, 2008. So this is far from the first one, but look at that. You've got the glowing Apple logo on the back. This is, what have we got here? We've got 1.6 gigahertz dual core Intel Core i5, 8GB of memory, early 2015. And look at those viewing angles, those chunky bezels. Still kind of like it though. Look at that tapered design. Feels like, this is only 2015, but it feels like it should be in a museum. 2015 versus MacBook Air M5 2026. Let's put those side by side. Thanks for watching.